Right, sir.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Jen, take roll, please.
Commissioner Corbin.
Here?
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Waldner.
Here.
Commissioner Thel.
Here.
Mayor Lindsay.
Here. You have attached the minutes from our July 27th meeting.
Move to approve the minutes from the July 27th meeting. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You have before you this evening's agenda.
Motion to approve this evening's agenda?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Appearances, acknowledgements, and correspondence. Acknowledge the quarterly progress report on the pavement management system. Chad, would you like to address that?
Yes, thank you. I won't elaborate much. It's provided in writing in the report. This was, apologize here, I believe it's the fifth quarter. I've had it for a little while, but we've been undergoing some review. Yes, the fifth quarter. And we're continuing to work through this process with them. We had another interim annual report we're working on finalizing, and that will be presented to the commission subsequently. But things seem to be on track. We've got to look at the software. It's downloaded on our computers. Our GIS database is final. Just continuing some reviews of this. If there's any challenging parts, it's the professor who started this with us has moved to the University of Wisconsin, and now so has the primary intern. But I'm going to make sure that we're not shortchanged, I guess you could say, by that. It's challenging, but most of the work that we're doing anyway is electronic and email correspondence and such. But it's going along well. It's an intense software, and we look forward to the training on it so we can use that going forward.
Very good. Acknowledge, no, we don't need a motion on that one.
Please.
Okay, do we have a motion to acknowledge?
So moved. To acknowledge the quarterly progress report for the pavement management system.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Acknowledge the June investment report, gross salaries, and bills for ratification. Jen, did you want to address that?
I have no comment unless you have questions.
Okay,
A month of normal business.
normal is okay.
Typical would
Good.
probably be a better
Yes.
word.
Do we have a motion to acknowledge?
I'll move to
Second.
acknowledge the June investment report.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no old business, under new business, authorize the mayor to sign a quitclaim deed, Lot 2, Coles subdivision of Lot 1, Block 1, Town Proprietors First Edition. And Chad, I'll go ahead and introduce this, and then if there's something you want to add to it. In 1938, there was a little tiny piece on the corner of Washington and 2nd Street that was a 30-foot one way, 30-foot the other way, and a 50-foot radius, a little funny-looking piece of pie that was given to the city. And in this new Highway 34 reconstruction, that created an issue between that piece, between Coles property, which over the years, the city has given permission to, build and remodel, and currently, we know for sure that their parapet sticks over that little piece of property. The state wants to work with the property owner to, work out how that corner is going to be developed in the reconstruction of Highway 34 for 2016. Talking with David, and both of us agreed in that the length of time that Coles have been able to use that and were given permission to upgrade and things that they did have the right to, and David, help me out with the word I'm looking for.
Well, there's no doubt, in my opinion, that Coles adversely possessed the land.
Right.
They
Adverse
used
possession,
it,
that's what I was looking for.
They've maintained it, they've paid taxes on it. And we've operated for, of course, as long as any of us know, as if it's theirs. We didn't even know we owned it.
Right.
This was new to us. So this action tonight, asking that the mayor be able to sign the deed, is really making the courthouse records reflect reality. We're actually correcting a long-held mistake. But we need to do that because the state of South Dakota wants to deal with the exact correct property owner. That's how this came to light.
Yep.
And so by authorizing the mayor to sign this, we're not giving away land, we're not giving away anything that's usable, anything that's valuable, anything that we knew was ours, for that matter. We're literally we're literally redeeding something that has been the Coles for many, many, many years. So I just want to be clear on what it is. It's an unusable,
And it's just a little tiny piece,
it's not even, it's like
Yes.
500 square feet.
if that.
Yeah, if.
Because it's a
very small.
radius.
It's very small.
Yeah, it's very, very small. So anyway, the best way to handle this, and we've visited with the state, is to deed it to Coles, and then the state and Coles will work out the arrangements for the development of that corner. So that's what this is. Chad, is there more that you'd like to add?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. So at this point,
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the quitclaim deed for Lot 2 of Cole subdivision of Block 1, Town Proprietors, First Edition.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, consider bid number 839, fuel system improvements, Madison Municipal Airport. Chad, would you like to address this, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Your Honor. We had opened bids for the fuel system improvements, which utilize the existing tanks, but implement new electrical wiring and control system wiring, new piping, and new dispensers and pumps and such like that. That's a very brief description of the work, but we opened bids for that on July 30th, 2015, 10 o'clock last Thursday. We received 3 bids. They ranged in price from $337,000 roughly to $271,000. The low bid was submitted by Amert Construction of Madison, South Dakota here. And they are utilizing a couple local subcontractors, is what they had indicated. Barger Electric is what they plan to use, and then Winter Brothers Concrete as well for the concrete portion of the work. This project we've talked about quite a bit, actually, in the last couple months. Overall, project-wise, which I believe is a very important item that you want to consider, the project cost right now is estimated to include with the design component, a contingency, and to cost $337,000. There's a couple different sources that Jen has identified to fund this with. As you may recall, this was not a budgeted item. If I may speak for Jen, and you can chime in, there's a general fund contingency of $170,000, land rental funds that wasn't budgeted for to the tune of $38,750, some capital improvement funds that were included in the budget that we won't be utilizing this year with our current estimates of about $31,350. Another source of funds for this is a South Dakota grant from the Aeronautics Department to the tune of 20%, up to $60,000. So we would reach that cap, and it would be capped there. That leaves a shortfall of about just over $37,000 that the commission needs to be aware of, whether, there's a reserve that the airport has for its CIP projects, not this project. That is an option. And there may be other options that Jen can talk about better than I can, but it's definitely an expensive project. I am confident the bids were sound. You know, we had 3 bidders, 2 of them were close, very competitive. O'Day is a very reputable airport fuel system contractor, among other things, and of course, Amert, they're a general contractor that does a lot of things, of course, here in Madison, and they have subs, suitable subs that can provide in this equipment and provide for this work as well. So I would be confident and comfortable if you'd award this to Amert. You may want to add a contingency. I haven't let David review the bid bond yet. You may want to have a contingency, should you choose to award it, of a favorable review of the bid bond by the attorney, if you so choose. And at that, I guess I'd leave it at that.
Yeah, and I guess I'd like to add to it, and that Chad and I made the trip to Pier and met with the aeronautics board out there, and they granted us the $60,000 for this project. That's not to say that they would do that in a subsequent year if we didn't do it this year. And we also have $41,000 that we will have to pay, and that has already been expended in the design process. So if we chose not to move forward at this point in time, we could have an expense of $101,000 of this that could not be available.
Well, we'd already pay the 41, right? So if we did it a year from now, we'd already have that paid for?
No, because we'd have to start over again.
Why is that?
You,
Why would we have to start over in the engineering?
You probably would be able to
Utilize some
have
of
those
it.
plans on the shelf. You may have to revisit some
Yep.
slight things, so.
Right.
it
But
would be
they
slight
aren't,
update costs, but it
Yeah.
wouldn't be
Right,
another
very
it wouldn't
Absolutely.
quite be 41. But then again, you'd have to also go back and see if the aeronautics board would be willing to give you the 20% grant that we asked for. You know,
Yep.
the 60,000 that we asked for, so.
When does that time run out?
On the aeronautics one,
Yeah.
I don't know.
In other words-
It's for us to do this year. I don't know
Okay,
if,
so December 31st?
there's not a date that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I would have to look at that agreement. We
Yep.
have that. We've
We do
put it
have
on
it.
hold
Yep.
until we're just have it. They received it a couple of weeks ago. We just wanted to, if they didn't go proceed, we won't want to proceed with the process of authorizing
Yeah.
the mayor to proceed and
Yeah,
such.
yeah.
And so I don't know off the top of my head what that finally. The other thing, if I could report, maybe, KLJ has indicated this was a frustrating project, I guess I'll say it that way, but they anticipate there may be, in that 337 that I already mentioned, that includes an anticipated potential engineering amendment charge for some extra effort and charges that they didn't originally anticipate and/or they've already incurred. Because when we were reviewing these plans for the bid, there was a lot of back and forth of, we cut a bunch of things out. Well, I wouldn't say a bunch. We saved probably $7,000 to $10,000 by making some changes to where the Public Works Department was removing the asphalt, the electric department was doing this and doing that and such like that. But that took some additional time to prepare addendums, to answer questions, to finalize the plans. And so included in that 337 that I mentioned, there will also be forthcoming amendment request from KLJ that the commission would have to consider as well, to the tune of about $15,000. One thing I'd like to say to that is, if we can do any of those costs and do any of those things without involving them, we're gonna do it. But some of them are pretty technical in that, you know, we have mechanical engineers, electrical engineers on the project where they review, one thing they do is they review submittals of pump types and review them, confirm them. It's an important process where if you don't accept the proper submittal or a wrong pump is provided and it's accepted, it may fail prematurely or various things. It's a standard process in projects like this, but I did want to just point that out as well. That's included in the 337.
That 337 you're talking about, that's KLJ's estimate?
That is,
Or-
that's includes the design, current under contract and anticipated amendment request forthcoming. That includes this bid, the 271 from Amert Construction, and that includes a small contingency for construction of 10,000. You know, if we don't realize that,
Yeah.
of course, that
Yep.
would come off too.
Okay.
So,
Because I was like, the engineer's estimate here is 269,000.
right. That was their engineer's estimate. The bid came at 271.
Okay.
And that's just for the
And
bid work
The
itself.
337 that you're talking about includes the KLJ stuff
And a small
and
contingency.
the contingency.
Correct,
Okay.
yes, sir.
I got one other question then on, and I don't mean to get too far into the weeds of this, but, you know, because the devil's in the details for sure on all of these bids, and we have to trust people that are watching this, but, you know, there's a couple of these bid items that are almost double, and actually, and I'd like to go with item number 16, the field management system, and the reason I'm bringing this one up is because it's significantly higher on both of the other bidders than our low bid. In one of them here, it's even more than double. And, you know, it's one of those things where I don't want to buy a cheap field management system and then all of a sudden Jen's spending an extra $40,000 a year to manage this thing either. So I want to make sure that, you know, I'm not leaving $12,000 on the table here with a field management system that's gonna cost me 20 next year. So I guess I'd like to know about that. Are we talking are we talking the software? I know we've talked, it's gonna be hooked into Jen's office and she can access it, and
That's,
I haven't heard what this thing entirely is going to do.
yeah.
Maybe you guys have.
That's a good question. The one thing I'd point out before I try to get into some of the detail in response, the 12.5 is what Amert bid. The other one was just slightly higher. It was at the 17.3. But the O'Day bid was all the way up to 28.5.
Right.
So
More than double.
Right, that one was the highest. And you know how the bidders put their dollars in here, you know, they could do it how they wish. The one thing I will say is, they all bid the same thing, so the product we're gonna get from this would be the same no matter what. They maybe
spec'd
put
out.
dollars,
It's all according to spec.
yeah, it's
correct?
all
Yeah.
according to spec. They may put their dollars into another item, but in the end of the day, we're gonna get the same
Yep.
product
Understand
from
that.
an Amert bid or the other
Yeah.
bid. And the other thing, and actually it touches on a little bit that I mentioned just before, is that's gonna be an important part of our review process of their submittals, so that we know that what they're submitting meets the spec. I mean, the spec is this thick of a spec, you know, so
Yeah.
we're
Yep.
looking at that and we make sure that they're not giving us an off-brand or an offshoot or anything like that. And it includes your computer systems, your hardware, your software, your communication lines, and even a computer, or maybe, we narrowed it down to one computer, so it talks to Jen's office and such like that. And it not only will help for fuel ordering for our supplier, because I think the finance office is gonna be doing that, but it'll also be available, and it's a standard product used for leak detection as well. If you stick it, you know, small, slow leaks, you can't pick that up, and this is what's been explained to me as a standard, what you use rather than climbing up an 11-foot high tank and trying to stick it.
Right.
You know, and determine,
Right.
so. But very good question. Did I answer that for you?
A little bit. I guess I'm still, that's a concern.
Okay.
Just when it's, you know, more than double on that one specific piece, I don't know.
Yeah. it's
What's
gonna
the
end up costing
interface
more.
like? I mean, is it completely different? I mean, I understand Ford and a Chrysler, you know, I mean, Randy's driving a Dodge now because that's what was on bid, and in general, you turn the key and it runs. But, you know, that's a lot easier to do when you're talking something, and again, this is something that's gonna get in place, it'll probably be there for 30, 40 years, and let's get it right. And
Well, the one thing, I'm looking through this.
there's a couple other items that are.
Line
of
13 and
pretty-
14
Pretty skewed as well,
is the
yeah,
same way.
yeah.
The field management, if I may, basically we have, it says, the spec says field master model, so-and-so, so-and-so, provided by this company of this address, period. If they want to provide a different one, they have to get approval in advance. And I typically that's before the bid is even submitted, and there was nothing submitted, so Amert construction will have to provide the same fuel system, this Fuel Master Model FMU 2560.
What
the
you're
same-
saying, Chad, is that was one of the specifications.
Correct, yes, sir.
So
Okay.
we specifically identified the type of system that they have to produce.
Right.
Now, whether all those three can go out and get that for a different price, I don't know. But even if they can't, our low bidder will have to provide it for that price. And if that means that eats into their profit margin, or for that matter, takes it away, that's their problem.
Right.
It won't be the city's. They're going to provide it. And if they wanna provide something else, they're gonna have to provide written reasons why, and you're going to have to approve it. Otherwise, we can expect what we got in our specs. And I don't wanna be flippant and say we don't have to care or worry about what they say they can get it for. But the burden will be on them to get that worked out, not on us to take an inferior product or a different product.
Okay.
They'll be providing.
Chad, are you the gatekeeper on that then?
I will be the gatekeeper.
Or is the airport board?
I will be the gatekeeper.
Okay.
Between myself and the submittals review process, there's very technical things that we've
Yeah.
got to make sure
Yeah.
we're getting the right,
And
so.
Chad will
I-
involve me if he'll involve my office if we think that we're
Off?
getting the runaround or we're not getting what we
Sure.
want. I mean, we'll deal with that together. I mean, he'll obviously manage the technical aspects of this. But, if there are issues with providing the right product, I'll be involved at that point.
Very
David,
good.
do you think we should give Chad a week to review this, or don't you think it's necessary?
I'd defer to Chad on that. If he'd like it, I'd see nothing wrong with waiting. Certainly no legal reason why we couldn't wait a week, but I think we should ask Chad if he needs or wants it.
Okay.
To answer your statement, if I could, Commissioner Thill, I would say, the burden is on them to provide the product. It's not a common practice, nor do we do a pre-review of what they're proposing, because as David alluded to and I mentioned earlier, they have to provide what is specified. And that's typically done after the award, and they list the manufacturers, they provide submittals. We receive all those submittals, we confirm that it meets every line here of the spec, and then we would approve it. The other thing I may mention, if I may digress just slightly, but related to schedule, as you know, this was intended to be done here in 2015. You may recall too, we moved the bid date back, probably cost us a week. It's a pretty tight schedule still, but one thing we'd indicated to these bidders, in an effort to be very clear to them of how much time we're gonna allow them, because if we tell them they want it done this year, we wanna try to live up to our end of the bargain and try to stay on the schedule we anticipated we would. We're not stuck with it, don't get me wrong, because we have 30 days to award the bid. But we told them we would issue the notice of award on or about August 1st. Well, today's the 3rd, we would issue that tomorrow, essentially. So we're just slightly behind that. We said we would issue them the notice to proceed. That typically involves, we receive the performance and payment bonds and the insurance certificate. We share that with David's office and such like that. And then we get the agreement, and we have the agreement signed. Then we issue the notice to proceed. That's when they typically, either then or at the notice of award, depending on what their comfort level is, when they tell their vendors, go, because can be some significant lead times in some of these products, like the dispensers and such. So we told them by August 14th, we'd give them the notice to proceed. We said the time's gonna start about a month from now, September 7th. And they got 30 days, they have until November 6th to complete the work. But within that window, that approximate 2-month window, they have 30 days maximum that they can shut the pumps down. Airport folks are gonna be inconvenienced for a period of time without fuel available, and we tried to give a reasonable amount of time for the contractor to do it, but not just leave it wide open, and we said, within that 2-month window, they can shut it down for 30 days. And so, I'd hope you just consider that as you're thinking about possible tabling and such like that, if you would.
So I think his question was, do you need the time?
I don't.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that answers
Completion
his
date's
question.
November 6th, right?
Correct, substantial
In and around
completion
that area.
is November 6th, right?
Okay.
Completion, you said was November 6th?
November 6th.
Thank you. And that design contract amendment, is that done already, or work to anticipate?
Part of it, they have exceeded, and they they don't like to do business that way. They want to get squared away, so to speak, and get covered for what has been expended, but then also what they anticipate in these, for example, these submittal reviews or a final walkthrough, you know, some of their technical people come to. That's some of those extra costs too. So that would be forthcoming. I would like to have it by next week. I don't know if we're quite ready for that. But that would be forthcoming as well. Right now.
We'll have an opportunity to review those.
Oh, yeah, you'll approve any
I
amendment.
just- I didn't know if it was.
Or
their
disapprove,
cost
for
round
that
or
matter.
They'll also put it there. They anticipated design reviews and changes in the future, and, you know, we're gonna bill for that, which does happen, I also understand. too.
But you'll have to approve those.
Yeah.
Right. They had estimated originally that there was a sub-consultant who was a mechanical engineer. Their work was about $14,400. But then the work of KLJ themselves, which included the electrical engineers, their drafters, and their airport technical people, about 221 hours is what they had estimated. So just to give you a perspective of the time, and so, which included the spill plan, that's another thing we're gonna talk about.
And these are all in addition to this bid
Not the
here.
221, the 221 and the 14, which amounts to 26.5, and the mechanical, which amounts to 14.4, that's the 40,000, that 900 that was already approved by you in your agreement with them, that's
Yeah,
included.
you-
They went over that.
Yeah, you realize I mean, you're throwing a lot of numbers out here, and it's, other than the 337, you've been pretty solid on saying that's what this project's gonna cost.
I am, because I've
Okay.
incorporated them into the 337. The current engineering costs and the
And
estimated.
then all this other stuff from KLJ, right?
That's
That's-
anticipated to be within that 337 as well.
And you're comfortable with 10,000 contingency? Do you normally just go 3%?
I'm comfortable because we're gonna be doing as much of this in-house as we can. And we did provide a relatively thorough review of these plans and we've cut some things out and such like that, and so.
Do we still have $170,000 in the contingency fund?
Yes, we do.
We paid for some steps and whatnot. I don't recall that being in the budget either.
And Chad and I have worked from day one on these numbers. Nothing has really changed.
Airport board?
Do they have any
Tim, Ken?
questions?
You're asking for recommendation or?
Comments?
Or
I
cash.
don't know if you, yeah, or cash.
Well, and I respect what you said, Michael, and that's 100% right, but if you go to item 1, mobilization, the local contractor requesting 14, one out of Fargo was only 7, and one 45 minutes away was 30.
It was- Yeah,
So I would echo what Chad would say, they have different priorities and different.
Sure.
And I'm not a contractor, and I don't know how these guys can create this stuff, but that's what they do. And
Yep.
to me, I'm surprised that, you have 3, 2 of them within 10,000, and the other one just, slightly higher than that. But,
Yep.
when you say a completion date of 11/6, that's literally 90 days. And so hopefully the weather will cooperate to all those lines. But, we've spent a lot of time on this system, and I think with KLJ's help, I think we've got a system that'll do the job for us for quite, for
Do you think it'll pay for itself with fuel sales in the life of it?
I guess that was our intent from the get-go.
Because right now, we're gonna be using, what, $250,000 in general revenue money, correct?
what's our fuel cell numbers last 3 years we've owned this fuel? We've been selling fuel for, was it 3 years?
I believe so.
About right.
2.5, yeah, since April of 2012. Numbers, I don't have them in front of me. They continue to increase a little bit every year. I think the thought is that they will increase even more with this new system.
That would help.
Credit card will be huge on our end too, yes.
Increase meaning $500 if we make, or, I mean, are we making 50,000 a year on this, or? I'm just
At
trying to
least,
think, I mean,
yes.
if,
Well, that's what we have in
Three-
sales. We're not,
yeah, cause
we
you,
don't have a profit of 50,000, do we?
Profit of 75 cents per gallon.
Right.
Actually, city profit of 50 cents per gallon. Because a quarter goes back to the airport manager. Our markup is 75 cents per gallon.
but, yeah. Commissioner Corbin brings up a good point, is,
Well, the other thing you have to think of too is, we've got an airport out there that brings business to town, and, the business it brings to town also generates income for the city through sales tax,
yeah,
which we haven't calculated as well.
we have a lot of entities in
And so
town
there's a
that-
lot of entities in that, that utilize that, make Madison home because we've got an airport. And then we have approximately 60 planes that call Madison home. So, and some of those
60
are.
or 54?
It ranges between there, because if you add the antique ones in, but also, some of those are business planes. There are businesses out there in that, and, they have planes that are part of why they're here,
Yeah.
is, doing business.
I'm not
Fuel
arguing
sales.
the,
I've got fuel sales here if you really want them. Fuel sales in gallons for 2012 was 17.6. 2013 was 26,000. 2014 was 28.7.
so at
What
that,
do we have for expense for fuel?
that's,
hard to
that's
figure out?
profit, or
I don't
that's?
have it in front of me.
No, that's gallons.
that-
That's gallons.
Oh.
So I
That's
think you
gallons.
gotta take 50 cents.
Right.
Right.
Sweet, 9,000, 13,000.
If you
So if
take
we make 13,000 a year, it'll take,
2014,
21,005 before we paid the airport manager the stipend.
21,000 a year.
21,500.
Even at 20,000, doing easy math.
So you're looking at, what, 14-year payback? At that rate.
to break even.
right.
Does that sound right?
Yeah. And that's based on the existing gallons.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
based on existing, that's not what this could.
How long do these things usually last? I mean, is it gonna last 30 years?
Should be addressed in that, in this.
Chad?
this is quality equipment, it's your standard, I would just, 20 to 25 years, maybe 30 if it's maintained well.
But the other thing is you're talking about the pumps, basically. Because when I went around to the airports from here all the way down to Vermillion and visited with what they have down there, they have tanks and that at the Sioux Falls Airport that have been in place for 40 years. So we're not talking about replacing piping and things, 20 years from now. So the cost of replacing the fuel pumps themselves would be dramatically less than what we're looking at
Yeah.
here.
You may have to upgrade the software and the credit
Yes,
card readers
right.
and.
Yeah,
all of
but it's,
that. I
but
mean,
it's
you're-
not gonna be a cost like this.
No, because all your piping and other things should, obviously will be in place, but,
Right, and then we're also relocating it, so,
Yeah.
we're not just putting it back in the same spot, we're putting it in a safer spot,
Yep.
so we have added expense because of that.
The state did a study several years ago, I could probably find the figures, but they did a study of every airport in South Dakota and the impact, financial impact of it. And it was millions of dollars in Madison of direct and indirect
Mhm.
because of the airport, literally millions.
KLG brought that to the board.
Yeah, there's a lot of indirect that's just not fuel, but having a safe fuel system, and that's one of the things, that, I'm for is having a safe fuel system, because, if you're driving down the road and you got dirt in the fuel and your car quits, you can coast off to the side of the road. But there's no side of the road at 10,000 feet.
And that's one thing too, that, it does bring everything up to code. There's various issues there now that it isn't quite up to code in various things, and so that's a big part of what this is doing. And quite honestly, why some of the professional costs are so high, because these folks are experts in these fields, and we pay for that hourly wage and such.
When we bought this, we really didn't know what we had, and we soon found out that we needed improvements, and one was a credit card pump, and that's kind of where this whole thing started. Snowballed to where we're at now. But, lost my train of thought. But-
Plus, the
well,
pumps that we
well,
currently
well,
have
well,
weren't
well,
accurate.
Why this jumped out at everybody was, once our airside needs are met from FAA, they won't participate in this until all our airside needs are met, like the taxiway we've been working on for years, literally. And when they do, when we have our site needs met, our thought was, then the FAA will participate in this kind of project. And that's where we were headed as an airport board, was to get the FAA to participate at 90%. And it became clear, we're not gonna make it that far. That's where we are today.
So you were hoping it'd last long enough so you
We were
could,
hoping it'd last long enough to get the FAA to participate.
Right.
And we soon found out, well, we thought we could get a credit card, we'll go a little further down the road, well, that opened up the can of worms. And they all jumped out.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna do something, FAA requires X, and either you do it or else you don't. I can't simply just do it.
There's a fair amount of effort, from the Public Works Department, Fred, I've coordinated with Fred, and in the Electric Department, they're doing some things in here, so I, just be advised, and we coordinated with them before we added that into this. And, we made some changes to the bid, so the contractor wasn't billing us for it, we could do it in-house, so be aware that, I'll be talking to Fred and, Jerry about that, so.
Other questions?
I don't know, it's a lot of money. Do you guys have any other, can think of any other potential funding sources we could use for this, or is it all gonna come from the general fund? Airport board.
I guess there's an opportunity cost lost if we can't move that product too. So there's two ways to spin that.
All right.
No other questions? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to consider bid number 839 fuel system improvements for the Madison Airport.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it because it's needed for the community. And
I would
for
agree with that.
Our bigger businesses, I know it's $1 million economic development, millions of dollars in this area. I obviously have my concerns, we voiced them, I visited with the airport board president as well. Ken, you're exactly right, I like your thinking, and so that we could get some additional federal monies. Unfortunately, we didn't quite make it, but, and that's fine, part of that, and I understand the history of the parallel attack, and you're right, it's been years that we've been working on it, so, hate using our contingency and everything, I think we've beat that to death, so I'll make my second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those, yes, sir.
Is there concerns among the commissioners that we need another week or so to answer any questions? I mean, I realize there's a motion on the floor to.
Nope, and you're
This is for the,
you're perfectly fine.
There's discussion and, are we satisfied? I'm not, it's not so much that I'm opposed to this, it's a high ticket item. I, like you, when I was Commissioner of Finance, we need to get a credit card system, and that'll really help us out a lot and create some efficiencies, and then, as you said, it got bigger and bigger, and so now we, have what was figured before us that I think we started out talking about 75, 80,000, Jen and I originally, when we were talking about it, and here we are at 337, and those kinds of things. So I want to make sure the commissioners, it's not that I'm so much opposed to this project, it's just that the cost is a significant cost, and I know we want to make sure that their questions are answered about it before we move ahead. On the other hand, I also don't want to put us off much more on our timeline for construction if we're going to do this. So I
David,
just want to know if there's
And from my standpoint in that, I've been in on it since day one, and so, I feel very comfortable with where we are. And I guess if I was gonna put it in the context, working on the highway out here is $1 million a mile.
I guess I like it, the fuel system right now is so Jen can keep a closer tab on what's coming in and going out there. we need to keep a closer tab on everything around here, what goes
Agree
in,
with that.
comes out.
Well, the other thing too is if
It'll
you go
work better
to,
for the taxpayers'
Yep.
expense.
if you go to airnav.com, which the pilots do, and if they're gonna be flying, they wanna know what's available at airports. And one of the things in that a lot of pilots, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kenny, they wanna know if there's a credit card system there, which means that they can, fly in at any time of the day, night, fuel up and go. And so that information is out there for all the pilots and that may be coming and going, and ones that we don't even know that may be flying into Madison, fueling and moving on.
I don't think any of the commissioners disagree with the need, and I know I've publicly said it should have been in 5 years ago. And I'll state that again, and I think the disappointment is that we have to use contingency money for something that maybe should have been planned in a little better. And I think to Kelly's point about our questions, yeah, Kelly, I still have some questions, and I'm putting a lot of weight over here on Chad, and I've done that on other projects as well, as him being the gatekeeper to make sure that what is installed, you know, is what the city deserves, and that we do get our money's worth for it. Having said that, and having already seconded the motion, I would not be opposed to delaying it a week, certainly, if commissioners, to get all of your answers, and I don't know that they're gonna be able to come back with anything better. Next week, I don't think you're gonna come back with anything different next week.
You've got two procedural options here. The person that made the motion can make a motion to rescind the motion, and then you can vote on that first, and then you can start over. Or you can just call the question on this one and let it die if you want, and then make a new motion to wait a week, if that's what you're choosing to do.
Okay.
Question for the vote,
I guess my question would be, if you want to delay it for a week, what do you want to know? What do you want to have for answers next week? Because if you don't have the questions now, then Chad doesn't have anything to look up or find out for you. So if you're going to delay it for a week for more information, make sure you're clear on what information you want to know.
I'd like to see the people using it actually throw a little money toward it, but I don't think that's gonna happen, so. I mean, we're using
Well,
taxes
and
that
they act-
6,500 people paid to help 54 people. It's, I guess, unfortunate. I wonder why. I think the city needs a fuel system. I don't know if the city needs to own it, just as Madison needs DSU. We don't own DSU or the school district. We need them there. We need a fuel system at the airport. I don't know why we have to own it. I don't know if I need to table it for a week to say that, but there's my 2 cents.
You know, and on my part, one of the things Ken said was, we talked about the economic, I asked that question about economic impact of having and not having the airport, well, 2 budget cycles now, I know. And never got, that's, you've come about as close as I've ever heard anybody say there was a study done, you
There's
know.
a new one that's being completed even as we speak. This one's dated probably about 3 years, I'm thinking, but I can call Brian at KLJ and get those numbers, if the commission would care to see those numbers.
And it's just that I think we have some responsibility to the taxpayers who ultimately fund this piece of property for us, you know. And I'm not questioning the good, there's a good thing, I'm not questioning that I wouldn't vote for it. I've asked that question several times, and maybe I've been asking the wrong people,
We're
you
not
know.
putting in a fuel system for 54 people.
No, I understand that, but I still
They would
have
get
to,
the
I
most
still,
use out
I
of it,
still
though.
am accountable.
Yeah, but they're paying in profit. That 50 cents is coming out of their pockets.
Yes, you're right.
Actually,
Hopefully
75
it
cents is
maintains
coming
it.
out. Actually, 75 cents is coming out.
And that's how many call it home, but we have, if I remember right on AirNav, an average of 45 planes that fly in and out on a regular basis, and I can't remember if that's daily. our
pretty
weekly.
good.
I can't remember what that number is, but it's on there. And that does not include the people that call this place home.
And there's
See.
lots of places that don't make any money in this town.
Yes.
City owns that don't make money, and they cost money.
I know.
Parks is an
Tear
example.
out the parks.
Parks is an example.
I've asked, I'm just trying to get that out, that's all. It's important to me to know, and I think for people to know the impact of this, so. The upside and the downside, so. I'll call the question. Let's vote on this. Now.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. You have attached some personnel adjustments.
Before we get to that, I gotta thank you guys, 'cause this has not been easy.
Thank you.
No, I understand.
It's not been easy for anybody, and I
Yes, thanks for
commend
coming
my
in.
fellow commissioners as well, because this
But I
is,
still will follow up with KLJ, and for all we know, that economic impact report is completed, and if that's the case, I will.
That'd be great.
Yeah, bring it in,
That
thank
would
you.
be, yes, that would be very,
I would highly recommend, a lot of the departments that we help fund are coming in on a quarterly basis and giving us an update. That certainly wouldn't hurt for the airport to do that, because as you can tell, that's kind of a black hole. A lot of things happen out there that we don't know about, and it's scary. You know, one of the things put this in is so Jen can keep a better eye on that, and it's unfortunate that we as a city have to do that, but we need to keep an eye on those.
Well, the other thing that pushed it forward and that we haven't really mentioned, I alluded to it briefly, the pumps didn't pass as nicely as we thought they were going to. So they have to meet the state code every year.
Yep.
So
I think
that's what
Thank
pushed
you,
it.
we're outside the agenda again here now.
We are.
So, you know.
Thank
so-
you guys for
Okay,
coming.
thank you. You have attached personnel adjustments.
Move to approve the personnel adjustments as set forth.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no other announcements or other business, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Before you go. Okay, so we are adjourned.